Hey guys, and welcome to our full review of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, or FNAF 2 is what we're going to be calling it throughout the rest of this. If you're new to reviews, and we do these in chapters, that way you can use the chapter feature on YouTube if you want to skip to a certain section, like maybe you don't want to hear about the graphics or controls because you already know about that, and you want to skip to like the is it worth it part, or the final rating, whatever, then you can do that with the chapters. So, with that being said, we're going to jump right into the game company / creator. Now, the creator at the time was Scott Cawthon. He was just solo running this series back in the glory days, as I like to call it. He's made great games. Obviously, he was pioneered the whole FNAF franchise. He's actually making another one called Into the Pit recently, which is going to be great because it's going to be based off the book of which I have read at this point. And then he's teamed up with Steelwool to make Security Breach, FNAF VR, FNAF VR 2, which I can't play unfortunately because you need a PSVR 2 or whatever. So I just stuck to watching people play it. But either way, he's made like all these great games, and he's made spin-off games like FNAF World, which is like it's in the FNAF series sort of. Shipper and Sons, which I haven't played. He made like those charity games and stuff like that. So he's really just a great game creator. He's good at what he does. So but yeah, we're gonna move on to what is done well. Now, FNAF 2 specifically removes the door mechanic. Instead of doors, you have two vents on either side, and you have the hallway in front of you. And I think that mechanic, honestly, is better than the doors. I like the fact that, hey, you don't have doors anymore. You just have to face them head on, which is much better in my opinion. And also, that you have to learn who goes into what vent. You have to learn who's actually going to be coming through the hallway, which not many people actually come through the hallway. Yeah, you have to learn who goes to the vents. You have to the music box mechanic is great. That's like pioneered the whole music box mechanic, because a lot of FNAF fan games use that now. So I think that was really done well. The only thing that we're gonna get into later that I think could have been improved is the cameras. But I would get into that later. But yeah, the toy animatronics are they're meant to look cute, but they're terrifying when they start actually attacking you. Except for Toy Bonnie, he still looks weird. Yeah, the Wizards being back, that was kind of cool. I mean, this is obviously, in terms of the lore, it's a prequel. So it's not actually the guys from FNAF 1, but it's still pretty interesting because you learn. I think it's Night 3 when the Wizards start getting active. So he's really in FNAF 2. They really slowly start introducing mechanics, which I really appreciate. And then the whole custom night mechanic, I still think to this day FNAF 2 is one of the best custom nights in the entire franchise. Obviously excluding Ultimate Custom Night, because that's just a custom night in and of itself. But like any game that has a custom night, like FNAF 1, 2, 3, I don't think did. Maybe it did.
It just had like a mode that was kind of
4 did not. Sister Location did. It was like a DLC added onto that. That was one of the last ones that did. But either way, FNAF 2 I think has one of the best custom nights in the entire franchise, if not the best. So that's really done well. I love that mechanic. The whole idea of like your flashlight can run out of battery, because I didn't think when I first started playing, I didn't think your flashlight could run out of battery until I found out that it could, and Foxy murdered me. So that's a really cool thing, because instead of like battery, because the place can't run out of power as well. That's another mechanic that left after 1. But instead you have the flashlight battery, which can run out, because Foxy basically appears. I don't think he appears on night 1, but he does appear on night 2 and onward. And so, basically, if you run out of flashlight battery, he's going to be the one to kill you.
You're screwed.
So, that mechanic's really fun. There's a lot of animatronics. I kind of liked... The problem I had with 1, and I didn't really specifically say this in the review, is, there's enough for what's there. But if FNAF 2 just had, 3 or 4, it would have been super boring. So, I'm glad that I think there's 10 total animatronics.
11.
Well, no, because I'm not counting Puppet, because you can't put them on custom night.
Right. Well, yeah, okay.
So 10 main characters, in terms of the custom night stuff. So yeah, that's really well done, I would say. And there's the mini games. This was the first FNAF in the series that introduced the idea of, hey, you died. Here's a mini game you get to play. That's secret because you don't get it every time. That's super cool, and it started piecing together the lore of the game back when it was somewhat easy to understand. And so that was really cool. I loved the whole death mini games. They're kind of spooky as well. All the jump scares, very well done. They're way scarier than they were in the first one. Because in the first one, they kind of just popped up and said hi. The second one, they're jumping at you, which is pretty good. So that's really well done. And yeah, that's the majority of what I can say that's well done. But moving on to what could be improved. One of the things I thought could have been improved is there's so many cameras in that game, but you don't look at any of them. because the only time you ever look at them is on night 1. And then once the music box starts becoming a mechanic, which happens on night 1 to be fair, but it's really slow, so you can still look around. But once the music box starts like going on to its like every second it ticks down, which I think is on night 3, I think that starts happening. Then you stop looking at all the cameras. You only stay on that one camera, especially during the harder nights like night 5, 6, custom night, that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things that I feel like it's wasted potential. Like I think it would have been cool if you had to swap to different cameras to do stuff. I mean, you still can. I'm not saying you like it depends on your playstyle, but I personally just stuck on one camera, which was obviously the puppet cam. So, I mean, I guess if you really need to know who's coming at you in the vents, on the easier nights like night 3 and 4, you can switch over and look at them, but you still at the end of the day need to be on that camera to wind the music box. So I think that's just there's too many cameras that I think just got wasted, honestly. So I mean, to be fair, there is like the Easter eggs of Shadow Freddy, who's in the withered area if nobody's there. There's X or QRX or whatever the frick his name is, appears very rarely if you take down the camera. So like there's a couple Easter eggs that are tied to the cameras, but honestly, if you're on the higher nights, you're never gonna see them because you're never gonna swap over. So I think that could have been done a little bit differently. Well, I think people's main complaint with FNAF 2 was there's too much animatronics, which is why he made 3, which only had 1 really. But I disagree. I think FNAF 2 had the perfect amount of animatronics. I think if it had maybe a bit more, that would have been too much maybe. But if it had like 5 or something, I feel like that would have been too little. So I think you did fine just with the animatronics. And then yeah, not really. I mean, the mask mechanic. I don't even know how I didn't mention that yet. The mask mechanic was also a pioneer, so I'm not gonna say anything about that because I think that was perfect. I think there was a bug, which we're gonna get into. There's a bug section later, but I think there was a bug in the early stages of the game where sometimes when you would flip the camera and you would immediately flip back to take on the mask, that way for going to Freddy. I think it used to bug out, and the game didn't think you were wearing the mask, even though you did, and going to Freddy would kill you anyway. So I think he rushed the game out a little too quick because there's a lot of bugs and stuff.
It came out the same year, right?
It came out I think it came out like 2 months later. It was not a big.
Fast.
I think obviously, hey, props to him. He took the opportunity because the game is blowing up. He's like, let me make another one. That's exactly what you do. But at the same time though, you got to make sure there's not bugs. And I think FNAF 2 had a lot of bugs in it.
And I feel like I don't know if it started with this one, but I feel like it could have gotten to the point where it was more so just. He was making them for the point of like for the people for a while with how fast he was making them and not so much for his personal enjoyment.
Yeah, no, the FNAF 2 started that because FNAF 1 people were like, oh, we want more animatronics, and then he made FNAF 2. Then people were like, no, this is too many animatronics, so he made FNAF 3. Then people were like, FNAF 3 is not scary at all, and then he made FNAF 4, which is terrifying. And then people were like,
no, it's too scary.
It's too scary, so he made FNAF 5.
Which was like not.
Which he wasn't meant to do, which he didn't want to do initially, but then he kind of coerced himself into it.
Yeah, and then I think after that he just started doing whatever.
Pizzeria Simulator, I don't know what that story was. It was mainly around when Steelwool started coming in is when he wanted it. Because he, as a company, Steelwool was like, hey, we want to do your ideas. We don't like that kind of stuff. So I think around the time frame when he was talking with Steelwool, that's when he started doing his own thing. And I'm so glad that he's detached himself from Steelwool, so Steelwool is now the main showrunners. I think it's fine. I think they have great potential. But at the same time, he's making a new game called Into the Pit, and I can't wait to play it. But either way, FNAF 2's, there's not much I would improve, honestly. It's not a perfect game, obviously, but there's the things there's not much. So we're going to move on to any problems or glitches. And like I said, the glitch where you put down the camera too fast and you pull up the mask too fast. Like the game got confused. It didn't know what you were looking at, and so it didn't think you were wearing the mask, even though you were. And so going to Freddy would kill you. That got fixed pretty much on day 1. Actually, people found that pretty quick. There was a bug where Foxy would stay in the hallway the entire night on night 2, which is not supposed to happen. He's supposed to leave at some point. That got fixed relatively quickly. There was a bug where if you flipped up the camera too fast, your game would just crash. Love it. That was also fixed pretty much the same day because people were getting mad. They lost their progress. And I want to say there's a couple more, but I honestly don't remember too much of them. But there was a good amount when they first came out. And like I said, that's another thing I think could have been improved. He could have just spent a couple days, maybe more, to kind of bug fix the game a little bit. But I mean, he got better about that. But in FNAF 2 specifically, I think he rushed it a little too fast. But Yeah, not too many bugs, and at this point, if you get FNAF 2, they're all fixed. So there's not any bugs currently in the game. It's like the RXQ thing, that's intentional. Shadow Freddy is intentional. Golden Freddy being in the hallway is intentional. Those are just all Easter eggs. But moving on to controls. This is a point-and-click game, just like the other one is, unless you're on a console, because FNAF is on console now. But if we're talking computer, which is what I honestly think you should be playing it on, it's just point-and-click, so you just use the mouse. But if you're on controller, you have all buttons tied to different things. But I'm not going to go over them just because I honestly don't personally know them, and also I think it's kind of a waste to play it on console. Like, I'm glad it's on console if you don't have access to a computer, but I think if you want the full experience, you play it with a computer.
Yeah, plus they'll tell you the controls anyway.
Yeah, but moving on to graphics. I think the graphics got much improved in FNAF 2. I think everything was a lot shinier. There's a lot more shadows that were more well done. So I think the graphics were a lot better than they were in the first one. They get better, obviously, as the game series goes on. Like, but yeah, well, except for security, we don't talk about that one. But either way, like, the FNAF 2 had great graphics, I think. And everything looked shiny and polished, and then the wizards looked really dirty and withered, so, like, he did a really great job on the models and stuff. And that kind of stuff. Yeah. But moving on to music/sound. Now, same with FNAF 1, there's not a lot of music tracks. There's really just a couple. But the ones that are there are pretty well done. The sound effects, though, is where the game shines, too.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows the music box jingle from the back of their mind. You know it's there. You always remember it.
Haunt your nightmares.
Well, not really.
So, yeah, everyone remembers that if you play the game, because you listen to it all the time. You have the jump scare sounds, which are really good. I think they're one of the best in the franchise because, like I said, I think the jump scares in FNAF 2 are actually pretty scary. I think FNAF 4 beats it, but we'll get to that at a later review.
And there's the freaking like hallway ambience of burning.
It's a meme now. Yeah, so that's how good that is. So like that's really well done. And I think that there's obviously the sound effect for when the people are moving through the vents, so you get to know when you get to know if someone's moving through the vents. That's actually a key mechanic in the game. Especially on later nights when you're not even checking the vents, you're just like, oh, someone's here, because you're actually counting it in your mind, like, oh, that's 1, that's 2, now that I need to check. So that's a good sound effect. And there's obviously there's more sound effects than just that, but all the sound effects that are really well done. So, but moving on to story and characters. In terms of story, this game takes place before FNAF 1.
1987.
Essentially you're another night guard that's getting moved to the day shift after your week is over, and essentially I don't think the guy dies in FNAF 2 because it's a prequel, so he doesn't. But phone guy's there being like, yeah, these are animatronics built to protect kids, and we should be paying them to guard you, except they don't because they want you dead because they hate adults. So. That's the kind of story there. It's not really like the story gets more extravagant as it goes along, and obviously there's lore and stuff, but I'm not gonna dive deep into the lore and stuff. But in terms of characters, you have Toy Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, the respective toy variants. You have Mango, who's like a toy version of Foxy almost, not quite, but sort of.
Yeah, she kind of has like an interesting story because like it's basically just like she was meant to be like the toy Foxy, but then people just kept taking her apart and breaking the absolute crap out of her.
Oh yeah, she was meant to be toy about. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then she just turned into a take apart, put it back together because kids suck.
Yep. And then you have Withered Bonnie, Withered Freddy, Withered Chica, and then Withered Foxy. So they have 8 characters right there. You have Golden Freddy, who was like sort of in the first game. He was more of an Easter egg in the first game than he was anything.
This time
he's an actual character, and he starts appearing around night 5. When you take off the camera, he has a small chance of appearing right in your, like, sort of to the left a little bit of the hallway there, and he will murder you if you don't put the mask on immediately. He's like quick. He's quick. Well, the hallway is a bit of an Easter egg, but he can't go either with that. But yeah, basically, if you have like 2 seconds to put on your mask, like it's quick. You need to be like the other wizards, they give you some time, not much more, but they give you some time. That guy, he doesn't give he just wants you dead. So there's that. Who am I missing? Because the puppet's on number 11. There's 10 because it's 10 in the roster.
The Balloon Boy.
Oh yeah, how could I forget Timmy?
Oh my god.
Annoying little balloon boy. And also JJ's technically an Easter egg as well. That's how she got started. Which is hilarious because she's a mainline character, not because she's in all the custom. But either way, yeah, Balloon Boy, who's just the worst. You never want to see his face ever again. You kind of want to play like a Gmod version of FNAF just so you can bash his head in with a crowbar. Exactly. But he steals your batteries. and basically you die if you
Yeah,
get killed.
Yeah, him. It's a really cool mechanic because it basically makes him and Foxy like a tag team.
They're
duo.
a tag team duo, yeah.
But for the players,
he's just annoying. And then you have Marionette, who's like, he's not a character you can actually interact with, really. He's just a character that you need to wind his music box, otherwise he will murder you. Now, if you fail the music box, you have a couple seconds to open it quickly and fix it before he fully comes out. Because there's an animation that's played, not an animation, but there's like a thing that plays as like you can see him starting to come out, but you can fix it before he fully comes out.
He'll stand up, and then that's your last chance.
Yeah.
Once he's out, you're dead.
Once he's out, you're done. So, and he'll play the dun 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 thing. So, yeah, so he's a really cool character, and he's actually one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. But he's not an actual character you can kind of like mess with in the game because like he's not on the roster. Although I think it could have been cool that he was like maybe like that would change how fast it goes down. I think that would have been cool actually. Like, yeah. But maybe that would have made like 10, 20 impossible maybe. But I don't fully know. But either way, Marion's a great character, and like I said, there's like some Easter egg characters like Shadow Freddy, XRQ, JJ. Like those are cool characters, and they actually sort of mainlined later, but they're definitely pretty cool. So, but moving on to replayability. Now similar to FNAF 1, I think I lumped it into the limited category, like at the very top, because technically speaking, once you do, because your first playthrough would include the Night 6 and a trial, a custom night. So I would say, theoretically speaking, once you're done with your first playthrough, you're done. I would say technically, because of the way FNAF 2 custom night works, that's not true anymore. So I'm gonna say that FNAF 2 is just barely in whatever the middle section is, where it's like it's linear, but there's still extra content after that. Because, and I haven't mentioned this yet, the way FNAF 2's custom night works is there's different challenges. It's no longer you can still control the things, but there's different challenges. So you have like New and Shiny, where it's just the toys and I think maybe Foxy. You have Foxy, which is like Foxy and Mangle both at 20, and I think Balloon Boy might be there too. You have new or old friends or whatever, which is like all the Wizards plus like someone else, plus going to Freddy, I think.
Yeah, there's 2020, which is the original 4.
Which is 20, yeah, 420, which is like the original 4 guys, all at 20, of course. There's so many challenges. I think there's like, I want to say there's 10, including 10 20 mode.
And whenever you beat a challenge, and when you play any night, there will be the plushie of the associated character with the challenge on the desk.
Well, up until you get the hat for the second hardest challenge, and then a Freddy's microphone for beating 1020.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, technically, but he is right. Technically, you get a plushie for each challenge you get, and you get a star. Not a star on the main screen, but a star on the thing. And that kind of shows you like, hey, you progressed, good job, move on to the next challenge. So it's not purely limited like FNAF 1 is. So I'm gonna lump it into the middle section, which is like it's limited, but there's a lot of extra content afterwards. So yeah, for FNAF 2's custom night was one of my favorite custom nights in the entire series.
Oh yeah.
But moving on to personal takes. So yeah, my personal take was pretty much all I've said. And like I said, I think it's one of the best in the series and in the entire series, in my opinion. I think FNAF 1, while it started the thing, wasn't one of the best in the series. Just because I don't know, I kind of like the not having doors. Yeah, FNAF 2 was more. FNAF 2 was also my first entry into the FNAF series, so I do have a little bit of a bias, because my first ever jump scare, fun fact, was Marionette, because I didn't know how to wind the box, and so I died. But yeah, FNAF 2 was my first entry in the series, and then I went FNAF 1, then 3, then 4, then once I got to 3, that's when I started going back on track. But yeah, FNAF 2 I think is one of the best in the entire series. It's to this day I think it still holds up. It's really fun. We're gonna be probably going, but maybe for a Conquering Time episode we'll go back and try 1020 mode on the PC, because we're not doing that on Switch. So yeah, or maybe sometime maybe I'll just go back to if we have like a 3-year special, which is coming up, not soon, but somewhat soon. We might go back to games that we played over the course of these 2 years or whatever, and like just retry them or something like that. Either way, I kind of want to go back to it at some point because it's a really fun game. But we'll move on to Zachary.
Alright, so me personally speaking, I always thought that FNAF 2 was one of the best FNAF games out of like the mainline ones. I always thought that FNAF 2 just had something about it that I really liked. It could just be the fact that I'm good at that one and trash the others, but in all seriousness, it is a really good game, I do think.
Alright, Isabel?
Yeah, from me, I think I did play FNAF 1 first, but I definitely did think playing FNAF 2 was more fun and probably a lot more scary because you're dealing with a lot more characters and you gotta get used to each of their mechanics, and it's all, even though it can be a little stressful, I find it way more fun, and probably that one's being my most played one, besides probably like 1 or 4, but I really do like FNAF 2.
All right. So moving on to, is it worth it? So all the mainline FNAF games up until I think FNAF VR, because that's when Stillwell comes in, so they're a bit more pricey. But up until then, most of the FNAF games are basically $8, excluding the free ones like FNAF Road and Pizza or something later. So $8, that's less than a Big Mac meal. Surprisingly, Big Mac meals are now about $8.50 or $9, depending on where your location.
Double digits.
So, which is sad because McDonald's is supposed to be cheap. But anyway, point is, instead of going to get a Big Mac meal and destroying your health, maybe get FNAF 2 and replay it. Or like, because obviously, like if you're watching this video, you probably played the game. You're just curious about how we feel about it, because FNAF is such a huge thing now. But I would say it is totally worth it. $8, like with all the content you get, especially because you get more. If I saw FNAF 1 as worth it, I'm gonna see FNAF 2 as worth it, because first of all, there's way more challenges in FNAF 2, and there's like a better challenge. There's 1020 mode now, because 420, once you know what to do, it's kind of easy. Not to gloat, but it's kind of easy. 1020 though, you can still know what you're doing and you can still fail, because there is some luck based elements into it. Because sometimes, like, the withers can attack you back to back and you can't even open the music box because they can pull down your camera. So, sometimes that just happens. You're like, well, I guess I'm dead now. So even if you know what you're doing, it's a harder challenge than it was in 1. So I'm going to say 1,000,000% absolutely worth it, especially even if you've already played the game, go get it again, play it on PC. I've contributed probably like $15 to Scott just based on FNAF 2, because I bought it on Switch, I bought it on PC, and I bought it somewhere else, I think. Or on the... Oh, I think I bought it on the Xbox when I used to play that. So, yeah, basically, just like, I've given him $15 at this point probably already. So, yeah, absolutely worth it in my opinion. No doubt about it. And that leaves us with the final rating out of 10. I think I gave FNAF 7, or FNAF 7, right? FNAF 7! I mean, FNAF 7 would be Ultimate Custom Night, right?
That'd be Ultimate Custom Night.
But either way, I think I gave FNAF 1 a 7, if I recall. I think I gave it like a low 7 or whatever.
I believe so.
Because I didn't want to give it an 8 because I knew where others were placing. I'm going to give it a very low 9. Because I don't think it's an 8, because I know where I want an 8 to be. And I think it's one of the best in the entire franchise, so of course it's going to get a high rating from me. And like I said, I'm trying not to let my bias come in, that's why I'm giving it a low 8. If my bias was coming in, I'd probably give it a high 9, but I think it's going to be a super low 9 for me. With Zachary.
Yeah, I do agree with the fact that, like, this one was way better than FNAF 1, right? But, like, with the ratings, what you have to consider for future games in the future series, me personally speaking, I'm either between a very high 8 or like dead 9, just like on the money 9. But with like, no, I'm gonna go with 9. It just has so many awesome mechanics, in my opinion, that it just does wonders for me. So I'm gonna say 9 on the dot.
Yeah, and like I said, like once we do the other FNAFs, you'll see where we're gonna rank those and why we think that. Because I think there's games that are an 8 that are worse than FNAF 2. That's why I can't rate it an 8 personally. But Isabel.
Yeah, I'm probably also gonna go with the very low 9, because I personally find FNAF 2 one of the best ones, and so I kind of don't want to give it an 8, and I'm definitely not gonna give it a 10. So I'm gonna go with just the lowest of 9. But not an 8.
Yeah, I think, for example, I think DLC is a better game overall. That's why I gave DLC a high 9. But in terms of this, I think it's a low 9. Like, if we don't do points here because they're meaningless, but it's like 9.1, or like Zach said, right on the dot 9. So yeah, it's one of those things that, like, I know where I'm going to be placing some of the other FNAFs because I've played all of them pretty much, and I don't want to group FNAF 2, which I think is one of the best in the franchise, to one that I don't think is one of the best in the franchise, but it's really good too. So I don't want to lump those together. It's definitely not perfect, so it's not a 10. Yeah, that's where I'd rate FNAF 2. So that's going to do it for this review. So hopefully this review helped you guys, whether it's buying the game again, you want to relive some FNAF memories, or whatever you're going to do with it. Yeah, we do a custom outro for this, so thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.